Joining us now is George Goodwin. George Goodwin, one of a cornucopia of candidates running for the 56th House of Delegates seat being vacated by the young and retiring Peter Farrell. There's so many people in this race. Let me get some of the names. I can't get all six. Maybe I will. Pendergrast, Goodwin, McGuire, Pinsker, Graven, and Dr. Dar. Hey, got all six right off the top of my head. Pretty good, John Fredericks. That's why I'm the king of talk radio. Joining us now, though, George Goodwin. Hey, George, good to have you with us, man.
Great to be here, John.
Now, George, there's a lot of candidates in this race. Tell us, why does George Goodwin want to go to the House of Delegates in Richmond?
Well, John, let me tell you, first of all, before we start, that my voice is a little gruff. Last year I had a bout of radiation, but I'm happy to tell you that I am cancer-free. I'm blessed in that respect. But one of the exercises that they gave me in the checkout papers after having the radiation was not talking all day long. So my voice kind of comes and goes. I hope you and the listeners can understand me.
Go ahead, George.
Sure. I want to do this, John, because I enjoy the work. I've had an opportunity to work in the General Assembly for 4 years under two different state senators. I love the legislative aspect of it. I love interacting with the constituents. It's just a job that I have found natural. For 32 years, I had a national security job, and I could not get involved in politics. I was a Republican at heart. I voted Republican, but I couldn't even play a Republican on the radio without risking losing my job to a federal ethics charge under the Hatch Act. So it wasn't until I retired in 2009 that I could get involved, and when I did, I jumped in with both feet. I was a campaign manager for Senator Tom Garrett, his successful run for state senate. Went to Richmond with him as his legislative advisor. Last fall, I worked with Senator Mark Peake and went to Richmond with him as his legislative advisor, and I enjoy the work. I want to be able to do it for the people of the 56.
How are you going to win this race?
I'm going to rely on two factors that separate me from the herd. And I heard you call it a cornucopia, but I'll call it a herd. There are a lot of people in this race, but there are two things about me that I want folks to know. Number one, I've got the experience. I just talked about that. I was their legislative advisor, and actually Tom Garrett used to say that there are 139 legislative aides in the General Assembly, but only one legislative advisor, and that's George Goodwin. And the difference is I didn't spend my day answering emails and phone calls. I spent my days working on constituent issues and reading and analyzing legislation. They allowed me to formulate legislation, to analyze legislation, to negotiate legislation, and advise them on every vote that they cast, whether it was in subcommittee, committee, or on the floor. In doing that, I got a chance to see legislation for what it is, the real impact on the citizens of the Commonwealth, and I could recognize the intended and the unintended consequences. The other thing that's going to separate me from the herd in this is my age. I don't run away from it. I'm 65 years old. And actually, Ronald Reagan said it much better than I can. When he was asked a question about his age, he said, I don't intend to make my opponent's youth and inexperience an issue in this campaign. I'm going to change that a little bit because I will make my opponent's inexperience an issue.
Well, look, George, you're 65 years young, man, right? Look, President Reagan, the oldest president to take office, took office at 70. And he's running around playing golf every weekend in Mar-a-Lago, so you're good there, right? So
I'll
65.
take that compliment, sir.
There's nothing to worry. There's nothing to matter with being 65 because you're talking to somebody 59. So you get to be a little bit older, and you wonder why your young years were so wasted. Now that you have the knowledge of what you should be doing, you look back, why did I do that back then? But it is what it is. It's all good. George, you're sounding great today. All right, because I kind of like your opening here, right? So you're kind of the guy with the experience. You know you're going to get outspent by the big-time lawyers like 90 to 1. How are you going to raise money? I mean, you got to have some money, right?
Well, I've heard it said that I'm running an uphill battle. I'm not without resources. But the other thing, John, that I'm doing is I'm trying to win this race the old-fashioned way. I'm reaching out to people one-on-one. I want to do this eye-to-eye and handshake by handshake. And the people that I've talked to, that's the way they want to elect their representative. They want to know who they are, and they want to get to know them one-on-one and not through some artificial contacts, whatever they may be, phone calls, robocalls. They want to know who the person is. And as a matter of fact, the very first stump speech that I gave, a fella came up to me afterwards. He said, I like what you got to say, and you're old-fashioned. You've got my support, and that's what I want.
All right, so you're going to win this the old-fashioned way. All right, I got 8 minutes. We're going to go rapid fire here. George, we got to get into the issues. Let's go. I mean, your legislative advisor shouldn't be shying away. Okay, Medicaid expansion. I used to be opposed to it. Now I'm for it. We've already given up $10 billion. Republicans in Congress have already said we're going to fund it in perpetuity. Why not take the money?
Because the dust hasn't settled in Washington yet. And if we go into Richmond and start trying to expand something that we don't know we're expanding, I think that is not a prudent way to proceed. I think the Virginia Republicans have done the right thing. Actually, Medicaid is expanding itself at a rate of 4% a year. And if you look at the states that have expanded it, their enrollment has exceeded their expectations by as much as 100%, double what they expected. And states have gone in debt over this. I think the Republicans in the state of Virginia have taken a prudent approach. And I think we need to wait and see what's going to come out of Washington before we decide how we're going to address the issue.
Atlantic Coast Pipeline. You in favor of it or not?
I'm sorry, you broke
Atlantic
up, sir.
Coast Pipeline. In favor of it or not?
I am in favor of it. I'm in favor of it because, number one, it expands our energy base from our current coal, water, nuclear, and natural gas. Will add to that. It creates jobs and it creates revenue. Now, that having been said, we still have to go through the fair process of acquiring the rights to the land to put that pipeline in.
Okay, we're with George Goodwin, one of 6 candidates, Republicans running for the seat of the retiring Peter Farrell, District 56, that is in Central Virginia in the Richmond area, and that'll be decided in the June 13th primary. All right, George Goodwin, infrastructure, Virginia, crumbling. Doesn't matter to me what you guys say. We need roads. There's only 2 ways to rebuild Virginia's infrastructure, tolls or taxes. Now, Frank Wagner, running for governor, state senator, he's proposed a floor on the gasoline tax. That would actually be an increase in the tax. Do you favor that, or do you favor hot lanes and tolls? Those are the only 2 ways.
I will tell you, first of all, I do not favor a gas tax. The 56th district, as well as the 22nd district where I was working for the state senators, they're rural districts. And a gas tax is a tax on people in rural Virginia because they're the folks that have to drive 15 miles to the grocery store, 8 miles to church, 50 miles to go to work. They don't have subsidized transit in the form of rail or buses. And so when we raise the gas tax, it's the people in rural Virginia that are going to have to pick that up. I am in favor of tolls because the people who are actually using the facilities are paying for their uses.
Okay, so I get that. So you're in favor of tolls. Do you think they should all be tolled, or are you in favor of these hotlines?
I think we have to look at the usage in terms of the congestion factor, the whole new model of where we put our dollars in infrastructure, I think is a good one. However, I have already seen it politicized as we have passed bills exempting certain projects from that formula of where we put our dollars and attention on the infrastructure. I'd like to see us go back to a strict formula of where we put our attention.
Okay, let's get to Dominion Power. I don't know, Frank Wagner keeps coming up, right? He's in the middle of everything. The Frank Wagner 2015 Dominion Power rate deal based on the Clean Power Plan. They would have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars complying with that, Dominion Power and Appalachian Power. No Clean Power Plan in the Trump administration, but a rate deal's made. But rates have come down. Wagner says a deal's a deal. I did a good one. Doesn't matter if they're paying for that or not. Other people say reopen it. What say you?
We had that actually come through this year in the General Assembly. And the reason for putting that whole restriction in place has gone away. And I think we need to revisit that legislative and give new guidance to the State Corporation Commission.
Okay, so you would be in favor of bringing that back to the table and renegotiating. Is that what I'm understanding?
Because the initial factors that put it in place have gone away.
All right. So even though rates are down and we made a deal, you think we should renege on it because the circumstances have changed?
I don't call it reneging. I call it going back to the reasons that we put that in place in the beginning have changed. They're no longer valid. So therefore, we should come back to the table and renegotiate how we move forward.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me ask you this. Medical marijuana, in favor or not?
I'm in favor of decriminalizing.
Of decriminalizing?
Keep people out of prison that I think don't really need to be there and cut the cost of incarceration in Virginia. I am not in favor of legalizing.
Why not just legalize it?
Because we don't know how to deal with legalizing marijuana, and there have been problems in Colorado and Washington with the growth of marijuana usage amongst the young, where they didn't intend that as a consequence. But the real reason I want to do it, I want to be able to cut down on the cost of our jails in the Commonwealth. If we decriminalize, we can control it in a way that is, I think, much more acceptable to the majority of Virginians as I have talked to them.
All right, so what is the difference between decriminalizing it and making it legal?
Because there's still a control on it. Right now, there is absolutely no way for law enforcement to stop you on the highway if you're driving erratically and check to see what you have in your body. We can do it with alcohol. We cannot do it with marijuana. And to me, it's a public safety issue. We've got to be able to move forward as technology allows us to deal with legalization.
So you're in favor, like if somebody's caught with a small amount, you want that decriminalized. You don't want them going through the court system, going to jail, and losing their license and their job and all that.
That is correct.
All right, let's get to death row, okay? I'll throw this one at you. There is a prisoner in Virginia on death row. He's appealed to Terry McAuliffe to spare his life. Some states do, some states don't. Some people in favor of the death penalty, some like me not. If you were advising the governor right now, what would it be, George?
First of all, I am in favor of the death penalty, but the case that you are talking about, if I am thinking about the same one, the initial witness has come forward and recanted the testimony.
Yes.
It was not as she testified in court originally.
Yes.
And I do think that that warrants the governor going back and taking a look at it. However, doing away with the death penalty is not on my agenda.
Okay, that's going to be the final word. George Goodwin. Now, George, do you have a website or Facebook page, or people want to get more information? Where do they go?
I have both. GeorgeGoodwinForDelegate.com is my website. I ask you to go. And, John, we have test run this, and the campaign contribution button works just fine. And I have a Facebook page, George Goodwin for Delegate. Ask the listeners to check in on both of those. Follow my campaign. Let me know how we're doing. I want to hear from people. I do believe in the old adage. It's the way I have operated as a legislative advisor. It's the way I will operate as your delegate, and that is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's for a reason. You listen to people.
All right. You just heard it. George Goodwin running for House of Delegates, District 56. 6 candidates in the race, Republicans. That'll be decided in the June 13th primary. George Goodwin not making any bones about the fact that he's 65 and wants to get to the House of Delegates. See, it's inspiring for people like me, right? 65, and he's still going at it. Trump is 70. But good thing he's in Central Virginia, right, the Richmond area, Mike, because if he was in Chesapeake and he was 65 and he applied to the Chesapeake Republican Party Committee, he'd get rejected too young. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network.